does serve to better the developer experience and how they work, because everybody feels better when you hit the timeline or hit the goal or ship that thing at the time you said it would, or with the complexity and level of effort that you said it would.
Hey, I'm Steve McGhee. I'm a reliability advocate at Google Cloud. I was an SRE for a long time, and now I help people build more reliable systems on the cloud.
Hi, I'm Kyle Campbell, founder of CTO.ai. We are a modern development platform that helps companies measure the software developer experience. Been an entrepreneur and a self-taught software engineer for a long time, and love to help developers build internal developer platforms. Shifting a little bit, so we talked a little bit about product management. And I think a lot of people are familiar with Agile practices like velocity tracking, story points, retrospectives. Can you highlight how these are different from DORA metrics, or how they might be complementary as we maybe operationalize them for the purposes of continuous improvement in software teams?
No, I'm actually really bad at Agile. Like I actually don't know very much about Agile at all. In fact, when I left Google and joined another company, they were asking me like, what do you think about Agile and Scrum? And I was like, sorry, what? Like I had no idea what anyone was talking about. So I actually really like this question, because I think this is like like an empty space in the DORA program, which is like, how should we introduce this to the Agile community? Like, are the Agile coaches out there like embracing this, and like, does this fit into their like worldview, and can they do something with this? And this is like, to me, this is like a really good open question. So I'm hoping that like you or someone else like has really good opinions. And so, because I know I don't, and I'd love to like form the questions next year to like help us survey folks to understand if this can work out in a better way. So I'm going to defer entirely to you.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a super strong opinion on this. Certainly, I've never been like a PMO level product manager, although I've been very involved in product management practices and engineering practices. As a founder, you wear one hat or many hats, right? And so, I've always seen them as completely separate things. I think it's very important in my mind to separate them. I think that when I separate them, I look at some of these product management or even sometimes project management practices as aspirational. It's us sort of trying to plan what we think the future is going to look like. And that allows us to say, hey, here's what we think the complexity is. That's story points. Here's what we think our velocity will be as we start working on those story points. And I think retrospectives make an attempt to look back and assess whether we were true. But I think often the complexity of this process makes it hard to like remember, like, here's what we said we were going to accomplish. And then at the end, you look back and you're like, we didn't fit as many things into the sprint as we want. And I think the problem that I've experienced as a software engineer in Scrum and Agile is every time you miss a sprint because your aspirations outweigh your capabilities, it's sort of this like slippery slope of like, well, we're missing our target, and that's not a great feeling, right? And I think one of the reasons I gravitated towards DORA as an engineer from the beginning is, number one, I could rationalize what it's trying to measure and the impact that has on me. And I felt that it was a fair measurement of what I was experiencing as a developer, whether it be through the tools or the processes. But more importantly, I think what it aimed to do in a lot of ways is give me a strong understanding in retrospect. And that was always the thing that I felt was very much missing from the process of PM. So in a lot of ways, I think the metrics in DORA are a great way to enhance the concept of a retrospective, because it gives us sort of like some degree of ground level truth from the people, from the tools, like what did we accomplish and what were the sort of like, metrics that led us there. And I think if you can get that really hammered down, my hope would be that over time, as the tool chain gets better, as we get better at understanding how to measure how we work as a software team, maybe even with the advancement of AI, and this is like one of the things that we try to be really ambitious with in our long-term goal, I think that data, at very least, that we get can help us be better at not necessarily predicting the future, but providing context as far as our aspirations and how we think about our product roadmaps aspirationally in a way that's more accurate and doesn't lead to long weekends, late nights, because we budgeted 60 story points worth of complexity, but we have 100 to ship. And I think that that's hopefully where these two worlds begin to converge, is that it does get embraced more by product management practices upstream from engineering, and is treated as to some level of ground level truth of what they're experiencing, and provides us a calibration point, whether it's through estimation estimation practices, or even retrospective practices, right? Where it does serve to better the developer experience and how they work, because everybody feels better when you hit the timeline, or hit the goal, or ship that thing at the time you said it would, or with the complexity and level of effort that you said it would.
Yeah, those are all really great points. A couple things that stood out to me are like I think measuring story points and considering complexity is like it's like it's totally separate from your release velocity and like your change failure rate, right? So it's important to not try to bundle these together and squish them into like one metric, but like they're orthogonal, so you should measure them separately. And so ideally, you have really good DORA metrics in terms of delivery and rollback and all these. But if your complexity is really high, it makes sense that it takes a while to like do the coding. So like if you find that you have something that has low complexity in terms of it's not really that complicated of a problem you're trying to solve, but it's still taking a long time to deliver, then you can find those gaps where it's like, well, this shouldn't have taken longer to deliver because it actually was really simple. Then like maybe it's not the problem that was hard, it was all the other stuff, right? And so that's like a good indicator that oh, maybe we need to work on all our other stuff, right? So if everything is taking a long time to deliver all the time, regardless of story points, then that it's probably not like the actual problem underneath that's the problem. It's like it's the other stuff that we can, and then we can definitely work on those things. Like those are commodity, like we can fix those no problem. But if you can get to the point where simple things you ship fast and complicated things you ship slow, like you're nailing it. Like that's just how this works. No problem.
Yeah.
Don't worry. So I think it gives you like an apples to apples comparison across different complexity levels. So you can say like, at least, once we figure it out, we can get it out the door, no problem. So that's one way to think about it in my head, I think.
Yeah. And I think they're also to some degree representative of different parts of the value stream. I think the product management process tries to represent measurement for how engineers work, and there is overlap here. But I definitely think it's also typically been more representative of a broader set of practices that might be more inclusive of design, strategy, like all of these planning cycles, right? And I think when you think about them in that realm, they become complementary, and it allows you to say like, hey, at the bottom of our value stream, if these are the metrics that we have, but they're consistently this way relative to these, you can kind of work your way up, right? And that's why I think it is something that I hope that product managers, project managers become much more well versed in, because a lot of their role is setting up engineers downstream and for success in implementing the features that are being designed and planned. And, I think that's a collaborative experience, right? So it'd be interesting to your point about feedback to see in the future reports more, not necessarily correlation to product management practices, because I think they are two separate things. But I'd love to see this kind of evolution of user centricity that brings more product management kind of opinions into the fold, because I think that's maybe where the long tail of challenge for software engineers exists, is in how these things get planned, designed before a line of code is even written, right?
Yep. If you want to learn more about DORA, check out dora.dev, and you can join our community as well. There's a URL, dora.community, which is an actual URL. You can type it into your browser, and where we meet up a couple times a month to talk about DORA and how they're adopted within communities and organizations. And then keep a lookout for Ask Dora. I call it Dora Bot, but we have an LLM that's trained on all of the DORA material for the past 10 years, and you can ask it any question you'd like to better understand all the material within the DORA reports over the years. And don't forget to check out the Accelerate book as well. It's 10 years old and it still rings true.
If you're looking to advance your CI/CD practices and get DORA metrics automatically through that tool, check out CTO.ai. We will help you set up your CI/CD process to automatically collect and search and report on the DORA metrics that come out of your CI/CD practices. And then you can use those and compare them with the word of your team to understand how to continuously improve over time. I want to say a big thank you to Steve from DORA for joining us, and we'll see you soon.